journalism mean to you?
I'm glad you now narrowed it down to journalism. When you first of all asked what I've been doing all my life, I got frightened. Half of it you don't want to know. But talking seriously, I don't know. I think I was virtually born into journalism. I suspect that's what it is. Because the primary school that I went to, you had to read the papers every day. And we had some book where you'd have to write the news of the day. That's primary school. And from then on, by the time I got to secondary school, in my Form 2, remember when I went to school, it's Form 1 to Form 5, then A-levels. In my Form 2, I was part of the editorial board of the school magazine. I mean, so I've always been into journalism. This irony is that my dad wanted me to do law. He felt that because he was a lawyer, I felt I'd be a good lawyer. But I just put my foot down and I said no. And therefore, in 1975, when I finished my A-levels, my dad took me to the late Alhaji Jose, and then just told him that, Jose, this is your boy. He says he wants to be a journalist. Alhaji Jose said, of course. We all know that Jimi would want to be. Because again, during my secondary school days, I used to appear on TV programs and things like that. So Alhaji Jose just took me in for 3-4 months, and then that was in the Daily Times. And then there was no looking back. All through my university days, I had one program or the other, So I'd always been in that circle of things. And when I finished uni, my first job was in The Punch. And it's funny because I applied as a senior reporter, and after 1 or 2 tests, Samamuka looked at me and said, you want to be a senior reporter? I thought I'd overstepped my bounds and I should have applied as a reporter. And to cut a long story short, when I now got my letter of appointment, it read assistant editor. Wow. So I started very young at quite a high level.
So how would you say that the media has helped foster democracy in Nigeria?
There was a lot of work done. If I remember the days of the Tempo, Tell magazine, I've had that nostalgic feeling for those journalists of that time. Tempo, Tell, Newswatch, The News. It was a battle. It was a battle. Even with the ordinary papers too, it was a battle trying to get democracy entrenched in all this. And of course, we all participated in it, both at journalist level and at activist level. One helps, maybe I should add that I've been a bit of an activist right from my uni days. Not necessarily in NANS or whatever, but in some other areas. And what is sad about it all, 2 things have emerged that are quite sad about the development. One, honest to God, if I had an inkling that this was the kind of democracy that we were fighting for, maybe I would have thought otherwise. Maybe the opportunity I got in 1983 to work for the Times of London, I would have taken it and bailed. There's a great sense of disappointment. There's a great sense of disappointment in the democracy that has finally emerged. But I think it's safer to say there's a great sense of development in the Nigeria that has emerged. Because look, democracy is a function of your people, okay? It's a reflection of the kind of people that we are. And I'm not happy at the kind of person or the kind of people that we are in these current times.
Of course. Let's look at, you have said it, that if you had known that this is the turn that democracy would take, you probably would have. But let's also look at it from the angle of the clampdowns that has been visited on a lot of journalists in recent times. The Ebonyi Guardian reporter that was beaten up and locked up, and there's been several of that. What do you think led us to this kind of society that you cannot even freely express yourself any longer?
Well, let me first of all clarify the statement that if I had known, I'm just saying it as a matter of speech. I don't mean it in the literal sense. Okay. I have no regrets in that regard, having done the right thing. So I need to get that cleared and out of the way. Essentially, one of the major things, you see, those who have held us hostage have been very, very wise and sharp and beating us at the game. They've beaten us black and blue. What do I mean? They have ensured that they have entrenched in such a corrupt system that has impoverished the average man. When you are impoverished, sometimes you can miss your way, to put it in layman's language. When you are impoverished, you're weak. When you are impoverished, you compromise. And that's exactly, and they've done it quite well. Look at when the military came, the first thing they attacked in a very systematic manner, two things: the universities and the middle class. They first of all took the wind out of the sail of academia, made it completely irrelevant. Then they also attacked the middle class. See, the military that took over this country at that time, who let me be very honest and put it bluntly, I'm talking about at the time I was growing up, you couldn't face your dad and say it was a place for those who couldn't pursue academic, generally, that's the way it was at that time. I'm not talking about now. And therefore, these were the people they first of all attacked. They now brought in their own contractors, brought in their friends and their like, enriched them. And that's why you have the political system that you have today. This political system that we have, a lot of the practitioners are not a reflection of the politicians that I grew up to know in the 60s. Well, the political class in the 60s were of men of integrity, men of good standing, professionals, lawyers, doctors, who were ready to practice politics on a part-time basis. There was nothing, you couldn't stand up and say, what do you do? And say, I'm a politician. It never happened. Awolowo was a lawyer, brilliant one at that. Zik had a PhD. Not all these nonsense PhDs that people have, but it wasn't an honorary degree. Zik went to school in the United States. These were well-rounded people with focus, exposed. But what do we have today? Look at the kind of politicians that we have. I will never forget, I can't remember if it was an AIG or a DIG, who said that the day he stepped into the Senate chamber, he looked around and found that almost over half of them had one or two cases with him. He used to be a DIG, now became a senator. So invariably, poverty has been the major reason. It's been a very good weapon that those set of people had used, and it's plaguing us as we speak.
You worked with 234 Next. The demise, if I'm allowed to use that word, of 234 Next was quite shocking to some of us. And so, what would you say led to the crash of 234 Next?
234 Next is the best newspaper Nigeria ever produced. I can say that anywhere. But the business model was bad. Period. It's the best. You could not have assembled a better team in terms of content. But the business model was bad. And I think it's a lesson for journalists for us to know. It's not to say that I would have done any better. Because the truth is, it's so difficult to mix the desire to produce a good paper, the desire and ability to produce a good paper, first-class paper, with the business model that will work in Nigeria. I give you an example. I worked there. There was a time we were thinking, let's even do, because circulation is one of the biggest problems in this world. There was a time we were even thinking of, say, okay, why don't we even produce a free paper? In the UK, you have Metro, you have Evening Standard. The thinking was a free paper guarantees your circulation, okay, your circulation numbers, which will bring in advert revenue. That's the cycle that it goes. Your content is good, you get good circulation. From good circulation, you get advert revenue, and back like that. But guess what? We couldn't even distribute a free paper in Nigeria. The Metro and the Evening Standard are sold mainly at train stations. People will just come pick a copy. I remember we were saying that, okay, let's even start with BLT and stack the papers at the various bus stops. So you pick a copy. I remember I was one who raised the voice that if you stack newspapers there at 6 o'clock, by 5:10 after 6, all the papers will be gone. Do you know why? Yalakara, who wants to use paper, Yoniboli, all these people need paper. They just go and grab everything and take. So the business model couldn't have worked in the Nigerian system. But the pity, though, is that they killed the online publication. But I think that by the time the paper finally collapsed, there wasn't even enough to sustain the online thing, which I think is the online newspaper is the one that gives most publishers a peace of mind, because now you target your content and you pick up your numbers. The numbers are there. You can't hide the numbers.
Let's talk about the Nigerian government, the current APC-led government. Would you say that anything? Would you say that there is anything different, or like they like to say, has there been any change since the PDP-led federal government came to power and the beaten PDP? Would you say there is any difference between these two parties, looking at what we have seen in the past 2 years?
The two parties are Nigerian parties. They operate in Nigeria. All of them, they have the same ideology as far as I'm concerned. The rate at which people were able to easily crisscross the various parties is enough to give you an indication that they were two parastatals of the same system. Some of us tilted our preference towards Buhari because, to be honest with you, Professor, what's his name? Dr. Jonathan he doesn't have what it takes to run a country. And I stand by that. He just doesn't have it, both in terms of intellect and experience. He doesn't have what it takes to run a country. That's my opinion, and I have no apologies for that. So, wait, I'm coming. 1 second. He doesn't have. That's as far as he goes. Now, did we think that Buhari had that experience? The answer is no. I'm talking about me now and a few people people like me. We didn't think that Buhari actually also has the experience to run. But we thought, number one, Buhari had a history of delegation. So our thinking was that, okay, he would delegate a lot of responsibility to Oshibajo, whose performance in just 1 month will give you an inclination of what he's capable of. That was our thinking. Secondly, I remember saying on my programs then that I saw Buhari as an accident has happened, somebody has lost his legs, you need a matron to come and stop the bleeding. After I stopped the bleeding, you still need to take him to Igbobi Hospital for him to see a surgeon. I never thought Buhari was that surgeon. I thought he was a matron. And that's the analogy of what has happened in Nigeria. Having said that, the mantra on which we actually supported Buhari was the mantra on which he came to power. And that is stopping the leak in corruption, fighting corruption to a standstill. Unfortunately, recent events have now shown that maybe our confidence was slightly misplaced from what you can see. I don't need to go through it. The Mena case, the Lawal case, the Oke case. But there's so many. That shows you that, Buhari might not be that matron who also has the full skills and determination to stop that bleeding. So now in 2019, we are going to have another battle. We need a surgeon. We need to retire the matron and have a surgeon carry out the surgery to move this country forward. Unfortunately, in the horizon so far, I don't think I've seen any surgeons. What I've seen is a few other retired matrons coming up and 1 or 2 nursing sisters.
If Buhari decides to go for re-election come 2019, what would your reaction be? Or would you support him, looking at if peradventure it also happens that there is no great contender like it were in 2015? What would...
My fear is that in 2019, we might not have good choices to pick from.
We really never had great choices.
We've never had great choices. And my fear is that it might continue. My fear is that the only people who can stop this now are Nigerians. Okay? Remember that PDP and APC are not the only parties that you have. Personally, I wouldn't want to vote for anybody over 55. You know, I'm 62. I look at my energy level and I know And I'm for 62, I think I'm healthy and I'm good looking. But inside me, yes, I mean, I must admit that. When I say good looking, I don't mean I'm handsome, but I mean is that I look good
Oh,
for
you're
my age.
handsome, by the way.
Well, fine, I like that compliment. I could use that. But I now know my energy levels. So what I'm saying is that, and I know my skills. Nigeria needs a whiz kid. I mean, whiz kid in just certain, I mean.
In terms of age
in
now.
terms of age, you need some 50, 55 with a lot of international knowledge. You see, running a country, a lot of it also depends on perception. Perception where people look at your president and you have that confidence that what he is doing is right. And then you understand? When you look at, I can imagine the people I'm seeing so far, if you see them coming up again, there'll be so much apathy on the part of the people. So he'll be talking to himself. But it would be nice for us to have a fresh 50, 55-year-old, well exposed, and then we all rally around him, and try to see. But if we keep going this same back and front between retired matrons and nursing sisters without looking for a young surgeon, we are wasting our time.
So what do you think the media can do in ensuring that this does not happen again come 2019?
I'm going to use the words of my good friend. He makes, I wear some of his clothes. Moody, Moody. Moody was the one who told me, one time, he said, this person fall my hand. The media, to put it in broken English, they don't fall my hand. Do you think we have a media? We don't. What are you talking about? Let's examine ourselves first. We don't, both in print, in electronic. We don't. I do newspaper reviews every day. One of the fun things that I have after I finish the program and I'm at home relaxing amongst friends is to take the stories that I know have been paid for. What media are you talking about? It is left for the people to demand of the media. A lot of the newspapers, some of them are not even paying salaries. That's the reality on the ground. So they've bound the reporters themselves, they've bound them over to the Philistines. So how many people are in journalism today because they love it? Some of them are in it, believe you me, to make money. The preference of an average young person these days is either to work in the government, to work in customs or local government or whatever, in the private sector, to work in oil for a good salary, to work in telecoms for a good salary, and to work in media for extra money. So we need to be very realistic. I am glad that in some online publications, they are getting extra funding for research and things to make the people who work for them comfortable. And you cannot have your cake, put it in the fridge and eat it. Conscious Nigerians must be ready to put money down to salvage this country and invest in the media, find a way to, because to be honest with you, it's not what you really call a profitable business. I think even you people have funding. Yes, you have funding. I think you get funded from here and there. You can't survive as a commercial venture. So what happens is a catch-22 situation. You can't employ the best. Or you employ the best, you can't pay them, you can't sustain them. So sometimes it's left to charlatans.
What's your reaction to the headless Fela statue that the Lagos State government erected along the island?
Why did you ask me about the Awolowo one?
Oh, well, I was guessing that.
The way Agbada for Awolowo finish, come put Timberland shoe for his leg. And now on the four angles of the statue, they put Awolowo. It's lack of thinking. It's like the things are not done that way. If you're going to put a statue of Awolowo wasn't even a natty dress herself. Awolowo wore ballet shoes. They don't know. They should have asked. Awolowo was a natty dresser. He was a dresser himself. If he wakes up from his graves and sees that it's red with the ballet shoe where they put for his leg, he go vex. In terms of Fela's headless whatever, it depends on what the artist wants to represent. Maybe he just was thinking of just Fela's dressing. But I would have thought that he would have put something on the head, and definitely there should have been something like a sax nearby, even if you just put a small one by the side. I believe, you see, you don't do things for the public just thinking of yourself. Let me give you an example. There was a time I thought I could sell vehicles, okay, just for you to see how things work out. And what spoilt the business? I went and bought the vehicles emotionally because I like cars. Of course, it was not commercially viable. So if you are going to do a statue for public consumption, you have to think of the people. Don't think of yourself. Think of the people. How well would they appreciate this? What I don't know is that Kalakuta people, and I'm one of them, I said that I will put Baba statue, get hit.
Talking of Kalakuta people, during the last celebration, there was a kind of overhauling of the Kalakuta Republic because the governor of Lagos State and some of his officials were coming around to, be part of the celebration. Do you think Fela would have been pleased with that action, clearing all the people that really are Fela's people, the downtrodden and, who are really Fela's people, and setting it up and making it work in some kind of grandeur stage for politicians?
No, let me get, when you say Kala, are you talking of the shrine?
Yes, the shrine.
Now you're saying that the shrine, are you saying that the shrine, because I was away when this
during celebration.
But are you saying that the shrine was cleared of quote and unquote miscreants for the governor to attend?
Everywhere was great. I mean, you if you had not seen the shrine before, you wouldn't have been able to tell that this was the same shrine that.
Well, I think I have a fair idea of what you're saying, and I have a fair idea of your anger. I wish people could see your face and not see mine. That you're quite angry that Fela's his descendants or whatever tried to. Well, I think for them it was probably some kind of compromise. Maybe the government has helped them quite a lot. And maybe if the governor insisted that he wouldn't want to be where the people were smoking all kinds of things, it's left to them. I personally, now let me make this very clear. This is my own personal view and what I personally would not have done. I'm not going to clear anywhere for anybody if he doesn't want to come. But then again, I'm not a realist. I'm an emotional person. That's my build. But I wouldn't. But they know the reason why they did it. You understand? And if you want to follow Fela's ideology to the letter, Fela never romanced with government people. And he probably would have thought it was some kind of compromise. But then the reality is that Fela is gone.
And so, are you then saying that once people are gone, their legacies and their ideologies can be watered down?
It never stays the same. In life, it's either watered down or it gets an uprise.
And Gani Adams and some other people, Fani Kayode has been on the foreburners of agitating for restructuring for the Yoruba Republic now, and so that has a direct bearing on you. What's your opinion on restructuring, particularly as it regards to the Yorubas?
I've seen on television where Fani Kayode has said, he joins those who want an Oduduwa Republic, and I just say to myself, if the Yorubas allow themselves, to be part of people's personal agenda, they'll have themselves to blame. What I think we need in Yoruba land is development across all the states. And I am glad that process has started. By even they having meetings even with Fayose, who is not in the APC. Forget all these rabble-rousers. What do you need an Oduduwa Republic for in reality? The Yorubas are not, in reality, they are not suffering. Somebody said that Yorubas are marginalized, and I said, how? The Yorubas are almost holding the four corners of this government, as it were. Okay, some interests have been marginalized. But Yoruba is Yoruba now. That's the essence. If some group are being marginalized, that shouldn't mean that Yorubas are being marginalized. What we should be looking at is development across the board. And to put it in Yoruba, imagine anybody calling you Lobeje. Because even the resources that we have are enough as it is now. If we align ourselves, we have good governance and so on and so forth, But as far as restructuring goes, to your first question, restructuring is ongoing. It's not a word. Restructuring means you need to change things around all the time. It should not be a mantra for the election in 2019. What we want in 2019 is good governance. We want good governance, period. At local government level, at state level. Because you ask yourself, some of these people clamoring for, okay, so if there's an Oduduwa Republic, is it not the same leaders we are going to have? Our problem as Yoruba people is our own leaders, not the center. That's where we should look at first. Our own leaders. Our leaders, are they leading us well? Are they compromising? Do they have the interests of the Yoruba people at heart? You need to ask these questions. And finally, when people agitate, either singularly or in groups, you need to take a second and deeper look at them for you to know what their own personal agenda is in that matter.